I buried him myself. Not because I loved him, but because I was the reason he died. When the priest asked if I wished to say anything before they covered his coffin, I almost told them the truth. That the man I once called my heartbeat was the same man who almost turned me into a ghost while I was still breathing. But I bit my tongue, because in our village, truth is not always freedom. Sometimes it is a second death. But my viewers, to understand how it came to this, we must return to where it all began. But first, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now in the story. My name is Adanna, daughter of Ezin, from Umuk, a village tucked between forest and rivers where the wind still carries the voices of the ancestors. I was 22 when it began, the year the rain refused to end. That night, the clouds hung low and angry, lightning snaked across the sky like spirits chasing one another. My mother had fallen ill again, her breathing sounded like a cracked flute, thin and frightened. I remember running barefoot to Mama King's hut to borrow herbs when I saw him. He stood at the edge of the footpath, soaked, head bowed, rain sliding down his dark skin. His clothes clung to his body like a second skin, and his eyes, Lord, his eyes were the kind that made you forget the world had warnings. He asked in a low, gentle tone, "Please, sister, where can a traveler rest till morning?" I should have told him to go to the town square, where strangers slept under the meeting tree. But the thunder cracked again, and his shiver looked human enough.
Come on, I'll help.
So I pointed to our hut and said, "You can come in for the night. My mother is sick, but there is space." That was the moment my life cracked open. The first drop of poison often tastes like kindness. When he stepped into our hut, my mother stirred from her mat. Even half-conscious, her eyes found his face and clouded with something like fear. Who is this, Ada?" she whispered. "A traveler," I said. "He will stay till morning." My mother's lips trembled. "You know what they say about strangers who walk in rain at night?" I smiled to calm her. "Mama, you and your old stories. Let him be." She said nothing more, only turned her face to the wall, muttering a prayer I couldn't hear. The man Chaik, he called himself, helped me light a small fire. The flame painted his face in shades of gold and ash. He didn't talk much, just sat there drying his shirt while I crushed herbs and fed my mother spoonfuls of warm water. Later that night, as I drifted between worry and sleep, I saw him kneeling near the doorway, staring out into the rain. His lips moved, soundlessly. When I asked if he was praying, he said, "I'm thanking the night for bringing me to you." I thought it was just a line, one of those soft, useless things men say. But the way he said it made something tighten in my chest. I didn't know it was the beginning of my binding. By morning, the rain had stopped, and sunlight spilled through the cracks in the roof. My mother's fever had gone down, a miracle, I thought. Chaik was already outside, fetching water from the stream. He moved with quiet purpose, like someone who'd always lived there. The neighbors saw him and began to whisper. When I went to the market later that day, Mama Nkiro stopped me. "Adanna, who is that man I saw by your hut?" "A traveler," I said. "He's leaving soon." She frowned. "Travelers don't chop firewood for widows. Be careful. Not every helper is human." I laughed it off, but her words stuck. That night, when I returned home, I found a small charm red cloth tied with cowrie shells on our doorstep. Chaik stepped over it without blinking. I picked it up and threw it into the fire. He looked at me and said softly, "You shouldn't have done that." "Why?" I asked. "Because fire does not burn what is already dead." I thought he was joking. I laughed. He didn't. Days turned into weeks. Chaik stayed, helping with chores, fetching herbs, fixing the roof. He rarely talked about his past, said he came from the east, that he'd lost his people in the war. His sadness drew me like a song. By the third week, I found myself watching him more than I prayed. Mama grew uneasy. That man carries a shadow too heavy for our house, she said one evening. He is kind, I argued. He has done nothing wrong. She shook her head. Kindness can hide the devil, my daughter. Her words made me angry, and when Chike smiled at me that night, I wanted to prove her wrong. That was how love began, not with flowers or promises, but with defiance. I let him hold my hand. His palm was cold, but I told myself it was the night air. The first strange thing happened a few days later. I woke before dawn and found Chike outside, facing the forest, whispering. His arms moved like he was beckoning something unseen. When I touched his shoulder, he turned, startled, eyes wild for a moment. Then he smiled. You dreamwalk, Adanna. Go back to sleep. I obeyed, though I wasn't sure who was dreaming anymore. Soon, my mother's sickness returned, worse this time. The priest came, sprinkled holy water, and asked about Chike. When I said he was a guest, the priest's face tightened. Has he crossed your doorway after dark? Yes. Then he is no guest anymore, he said. He belongs to your house and your spirit. He advised me to tell Chike to leave. But when I tried that night, he simply looked at me with those deep, patient eyes and said, Do you really want me to go? I couldn't answer. My heart betrayed me. The rain came again, heavier this time, as if the heavens were cleansing something I couldn't see. The villagers began avoiding our hut. Chickens refused to enter our yard. At night, I heard footsteps circling the house, slow and deliberate. When I told Chike, he said it was nothing, perhaps the wind or spirits angry at the priest. But one evening, when he went to fetch firewood, I saw the truth. I followed him quietly through the palm grove behind our hut. He wasn't cutting wood. He was kneeling beside a small mound of earth, digging. In his hand, he held something that glimmered, a bracelet I recognized. It belonged to Ngozi, my friend who had gone missing 3 months earlier. I gasped, and he turned sharply. Adanna, he called, smiling, like I had caught him doing something innocent. What are you doing? I asked. He stood, dusted his hands, and said, bearing memories. I ran back home, trembling, but when he returned, he carried nothing but firewood. That night, I dreamt of Ngozi, her eyes wide, her neck bent unnaturally, her lips mouthing the words, Don't trust him. The following morning, I found the bracelet under my pillow. I wanted to confront him, but something in me still loved him or feared him too much to hate.
With me.
He began to change after that. His smiles grew rare, his temper shut. He stopped going to the stream or market. Sometimes, he'd vanish for hours and return smelling of palm wine and smoke. When I asked where he'd been, he'd say, talking to the only ones who still listen. The villagers started calling him Oni Ohomio, man of the dark spirit.
Something is wrong.
They said his shadow moved when he didn't. But love is blindness that praises the knife while it cuts. I told myself they envied me, that they didn't understand him. Until the night my mother died. She called my name faintly before dawn. When I ran to her mat, she was gasping, eyes wide in terror.
Stay with me, Mama, please.
Adanna, don't let him touch you, she whispered. I turned, but Chike was already there, standing in the doorway, watching us. He didn't move to help. He only said, some souls must rest to make room for others. By sunrise, she was gone. We buried her under the old udala tree. As the priest prayed, Chike stood apart, face blank, lips moving silently. When I asked later what he had been saying, he smiled and replied,
I'm just so worried.
I was telling her so not to wonder.
We're in this together.
You need peace.
You promised.
That night, he took my hand and said, now you have only me. I wanted to pull away, but his grip was like iron. Say it, Adanna, he whispered. Say you have only me. I said it not because I wanted to, but because the air felt heavy, and my voice wasn't mine anymore. Breathe. The next morning, I found ashes drawn in strange patterns around my sleeping mat. When I wiped them away, I felt dizzy, like something inside me was being erased. He watched me and said quietly, "Do not fight what you chose." That was when I realized I hadn't invited a traveler into my home. I had welcomed something darker, something that fed on the living through affection. He wasn't a demon with horns. He was worse, a man whose soul had drowned and was looking for another to take its place. I stayed because fear wears the same face as love when it's too late. At night, I'd hear whispers from the palm grove again, not one voice, but two, echoing like a conversation between the dead. When I gathered courage to peek, I saw two shadows, his, and another shaped like mine. They moved even though I stood still. That was when I began to pray not for deliverance, but for madness.
Because madness
Because madness, at least, has an end.